Hey guys, it's Maymay. If there is one topic of conversation that comes up the most in my comments, emails, and Facebook messages, etc., it is beginner card making. I have seen so many people recently tell me they are just starting card making, but they are lost. So I thought it would be fun to get you ready for your Christmas card making projects or your holiday card making projects to do a little series on card making. So I'm thinking for the next few Tuesdays, I don't know how far it'll go because you're going to help me with this series. We'll see how far it goes. I think I will touch on card making. So today we're going to talk about card bases. One thing I've noticed is since having an actual physical store, because we have a physical store here as well as our online store, when people come in who've never made cards before, it blows their mind to realize just how little supplies you need to get started. So let's talk about that. The first thing you have to know is your card base. I like to build a card from the base up. You might like to build a card from the sentiment or the image down, and that's perfectly fine. You're going to find your motion. But for me, it's for the base up. I prefer a heavier base, a 110, a 100-pound, or even an 80-pound cardstock for a base. This is kind of, it kind of gets into kind of gray area so much because you go into the craft store and there's that aisle full of paper and you're just like, I don't know what I can use. So let's just start with the basics. For the base of your card, you need something heavy enough to support everything you're going to put on it. So I suggest, again, 110 or 100-pound, 80 if you have to, but I wouldn't go smaller than that on the poundage. So here's the cool thing. This is an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. In America, we typically make a card that's called an A2 size card. So what size is that? Ironically, it's this page cut in half. This is an A2 size square, which means when the card is folded, it measures 4.25 by 5.5, either way, 5.5, 4.25. I'll show you what I mean. Let's take this piece and cut it down. So I'm going to be able to get 2 card bases out of an 8.5 by 11 piece. So this is super cool. I actually have a lot of friends who say, if I'm going to make 1 card, I'm going to make 2. So I always have an extra because you're going to cut this page anyway. So I'm going to show you this. There's 2 ways to do this. You can put this into your trimmer, and if you cut it down the middle, which is 4.25, you end up with 2 card bases. That is what this is. I did this earlier because I want to show you the difference. So here's a card base, scored and folded in the middle, and here's a card base. This is just an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper cut right down the middle. Not paper cardstock. It's my habit. We're talking cardstock. So this is 2 bases we got from 1 piece. That's cutting it long ways, or portrait. Let's cut it where we can get a landscape style. I'm going to turn the paper or the cardstock into my trimmer on the short side, and I'm going to line it up at 5.5. Again, this is the middle of your page. This is an 11-inch piece of paper, okay? So I'm going to slice this down the middle. What this gives us now is 2 card bases. All we have to do is fold them in the middle. Now, beginner card makers, I want to show you something. I have a lot of tools. I have my scoreboards and this and that and the other, and I think we should talk about that. But if you don't have a scoreboard, invest in one of these dual-ended embossing tools. They're amazing. This chubbier end is the one I use all the time, and I can even just use my trimmer. Invest in a good trimmer. This one's awesome, by the way. This is the Cricut portable trimmer. You can get it on Cricut.com. Use my coupon code called Maymay Made It and get 15% off and free shipping. It's well worth it. Okay, let's score this card in half. So because we cut this one at 5.5 this way, we need to score it at 4.25, which again is half. So I'm going to put this into my trimmer at 4.25 here on the side, and then I'm just going to score. So you can do this way. This trimmer also has an optional score blade if you want to get it. You're welcome to do that. Now, why do we score? This is beginner card making. You're like, but I don't understand the reason for scoring. Why not just fold the paper in half? Let's look at it. I'm going to move my trimmer out of the way. And I'm going to, on my score line, fold this guy over and match up the edges and crease it down. Now, I use a bone folder. This happens to be the one I like. It's a plastic version. There are other versions out there. I like how ergonomic it is. It fits in my hand well, and I just enjoy this particular one. I picked it up one time and just never put it down. So that is a scored fold. So let's look at a non-scored fold. This piece I did not score, so I'm going to fold it over just like so. and I'm going to crease it down with my hand. Now, depending on the quality of your cardstock, you'll get a nice clean fold, or you'll get a crinkly cracked fold. You'll see this as you start to play with cardstock. Using the scoring technique, you can pretty much do away with those crinkles and cracked edges, but a good quality cardstock like this one gets you a nice clean fold. This cardstock happens to be the Brutus Monroe and Maymay collaboration that we did called the Trio set, which is the white, the black, and the craft together in the package. So that's the one I'm using today to show you. All right, so now what we've done, let's look at these guys. We cut this page down the middle on the short side. We cut this down the middle on the long side. So on the long side, we get a card that looks like this, or a card that looks like this. Okay, that's our base there. On the short side, we get a card that looks like this, or a card that looks like this. So you can change the orientation based on the way you slice your paper and based on the way you lay it out. So look at there, 4 card bases from 2 pieces of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. Now let's talk about borders or layers. Many times you will see card makers layer up their cards. The reason for that is because it makes them beautiful for one, and it also adds some sturdiness to the card. Now you don't have to do this. You can make a 1-layer card, and if you want a video on 1-layer cards, we can do that. Let me know in the comments below. Let me show you some basic layers. Now you have your what I would call your bog standard. This is it. This card, when folded, is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. If I want a border, my standard card border is 4 by 5 1/4. What this is cut 1/4 of an inch smaller on 2 sides. So instead of being 4 1/4, it's 4, and instead of being 5 1/2, it's 5 1/4. So when I lay this down onto my card base and center it, you see the white edge all the way around. That gives me a 1/8 inch border all the way around. Now, how do I know it's a 1/8 inch border? I want you to think about this for a second. If I take 1/4 of an inch away, and 1/4 of an inch is 2/8, and then I center this on the card, it's going to leave me an 1/8 on this side and an 1/8 on the other side. Sorry about that. An 1/8 on this side, and then an 1/8 at the top and an 1/8 at the bottom. And that's beautiful. I love this. This is very much how I do most of my cards. But there are times when I want a little more, or maybe I'm using a smaller or thinner card base and I need to bulk up my card. Here's what I'll do. I will start with a border first before this one. Here's what I mean. This border is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, which means I've cut it 1/8 of an inch smaller than my card base will be. So watch what happens. I put this down, and can you see that white edge? It gets me a 1/16 of an inch border. The same process. If I cut it 1/8 of an inch smaller and I cut an 1/8 in half, I get a 16 and a 16 on either side. And when I cut that same 1/8 in half, I get 16 and 16 at the top. Now then, I can layer this guy on top and reveal another 1/16 of an inch border. So that's not perfectly centered. There we go. Look how pretty that is. You get 3 colors and a nice sturdy card. Now, this is not the only way to layer and mat things, but if you can get in your head the 1/4 inch and the 1/8 inch less and how they lay out, you can do a lot with that. Let me show you, for example. This card we made in a video recently, and you can see here that I did a border underneath, or a mat underneath, that is a copper layer. Can you see that copper shimmering? And then I have my regular base here at the top. But I played around with this one and ended up doing a 1/16 of an inch here and an 1/8 of an inch at the top, just because I knew my measurement. So you can play around and get different borders and get different looks. Let me show you another one. Like, for example, this guy. This is a really good example, and here's why. This one is a white sheet in the middle. Then I did a border edge around it and a border edge around it, and then glued it onto my card base because I really wanted this to pop. And look how sturdy this now gets, and I like a good sturdy card, right? So you can play with these borders. The other thing you can look at, and this is from yesterday's video, see all these matte layers that I did? I want to hold this to the side. Look how many matte layers. Let me open this up. So we're going to look at the side here. I've got my card base. I have a brown layer, another tan layer, an orange layer, and another layer that I watercolored. So see all those layers and all those borders? It's super easy once you wrap your head around borders. Now, that's fine and good. We know what an A2 size card is, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. We know what the mats should look like. Now, how do we get started designing? I'm going to give you a quick tip today on designing cards. So a tip for design is this. I went to Pinterest or Google, you can do this on Google as well, and put in card making layouts. And so many people have done this work for you, which is awesome. They have created card layouts. Let me show you a really good clear one. I'm going to hold this up. See this guy right here in the middle? This is giving you an idea of making your card. Now the cool thing is once you know what this first mat is, you basically know how to lay out all those other pieces. And we know that first mat is 4 by 5 1/4 because it's 1/4 of an inch smaller. Now look at all these options, and this is just one page and I just printed it out. All of these are different card ideas. Some of these are 6 by 6, some of these are A2, all different card ideas just from one Pinterest search. And this is not all of them. I could have printed a billion of them, but I didn't. I love this idea because it really helps you when designing your cards to look at these layouts. Because I like clean and simple lines, I prefer the card layouts that are black and white. It also tends to not sway my decision making. For example, this one, because they're in color, I'm afraid sometimes I will lean to those colors. But if you ever need color inspiration, that's a great way to do it, right? Because these colors give you an idea. These black and white images allow me to pick my own colors and not be swayed. Let's look at some more of them here up close. Here's a good example right here in the middle. Do you see how we've got a pink, gray family card here? So it's 2 shades of gray, white, and pink, and this one is just black and white. So you can use this as inspiration and get color inspiration as well, or just design inspiration. Now what you can do is something really cool. You can take some copy paper or some print paper that's 8.5 by 11, and you can cut several pieces down and put them into a little booklet form. Just fold them in half, staple them together. This is not one, I'm just telling you this, fold them in half, staple them together, and then use the pages as your little design canvases. So let's say you wanted to design a card, you could just take a pencil, draw out what you had in mind, and then by putting it into your little homemade binder, you have it for the future. So you can make yourself a little handmade book. But you can pin all of these card ideas, all of these outline ideas on your Pinterest page and go crazy. Now, as far as items you need to get started paper crafting, I think we need a little more. And also, as far as sizes of different cards that are out there, I think we need separate videos for that. I hope this will get you started making an A2 size card as far as bases are concerned and borders are concerned. I would like for you in the comment section of this video to let me know what things confuse you about card making, because I want to answer those questions. Also, if you are not a newbie, if you are someone who's been making cards for years, I would encourage you in the comment section below, give me some ideas of things to put in the videos that would have helped you had you known them early on in your card making. There's one thing about card makers. We love making cards and we love encouraging other people to learn how to make cards. So I want to give you all the tools and all the resources that you need. So starting with card bases today to give you an idea of how to start with your card bases. That's what today's video was. And then next Tuesday, we'll continue this series, but you're going to drive it. So let me know below what you need to see next. I think this will be a great way to answer your questions. And thank you so much for messaging me and emailing me and letting me know these kind of things that are your concern, especially for all our new card makers out there. I'm excited to have you on board. You'll be surprised how much, though, we can learn from each other by having our veteran card makers add stuff to our comment section below. Thanks so much for watching today. Don't fret. We're going to have you making cards in no time. You're going to be making all your Christmas cards and having a ball. Have a great afternoon, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye.